He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place to live, work, and play. If you listen to this show regularly, you know that I constantly talk about the 1,000 points of light here in coastal Mississippi. These are the many dedicated people who are working tirelessly. They're really amazing. And the work that they're doing in the community to build a better place to live, work, and play. And when you combine the work of all these individuals, these people who are going out of their way to make a difference, when you combine their efforts in the community, there's really nothing we can't accomplish. There's no limit to what we can accomplish. And I think probably the best evidence I can give you of that is what happened after Hurricane Katrina. I think most people who would have come in here after Hurricane Katrina and seen the aftermath, they might have potentially thrown their hands up. But no, not us. I mean, as I say all the time, resiliency is in our DNA. We know how to bounce back, and we just got on with the program as soon as the storm was over. I was reminded, as I prepared for today's show, I was reminded of a quote that I always loved from Mother Teresa, where she wisely observed, "I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters, create many ripples." If you talk to someone in the community who really cares deeply about the community, who's giving a lot of their time and energy, they know that certainly their effort's going to make a difference, but to the extent that which they can touch other people and cause a ripple, that's how you get community. That's how all these people come together in community and make a big difference. It also reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Coretta Scott King, who said this: "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." And we saw that after Hurricane Katrina. More recently, we saw that after the cold spell. All these people coming together to help the vulnerable in our community, especially the homeless community. It's just amazing to watch that happen. The recent tragic death of Lee Brumfield, who was walking his dog on the beach on the boardwalk in Gulfport and was hit by a car that had just veered off of Highway 90, prompted me to want to dive deeper into the bike and pedestrian safety issue here on the beach. And as I did some research, I discovered one of my dear friends was doing important work in that area. So I invited Cindy Walker to join me in Coast Vue today. I would describe her as one of the beams of the 1,000 points of light here in coastal Mississippi. Cindy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. So let me remind people, you were, just so they have a sense of why I say a beam of one of the 1,000 points of light, you were the executive director of the Lynn Meadows Discovery Center, the Children's Museum here in coastal Mississippi. You were the founder and CEO of the South Mississippi Pre-K Forward Early Childhood Initiative. You were the executive or CEO of the United Way of South Mississippi. You're more recently a community development consultant, which you've been doing since 2018. And the reason why I found you, not that I didn't know who you were already, but the reason why we connected on this particular subject is that you are the chair of the Harrison County Active Living Initiative, and you have been that since 2017. So, when you hear my quotes, when you hear especially the one from Mother Teresa, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. When you hear that, it hits home with you, doesn't it?
It definitely does. Ricky, I'm a cancer survivor, and many times I've said, I don't know why I was left here to do work, because it was a very aggressive situation. But because I don't want to miss an opportunity to make my world around me better. And if it's to simply lift up others who are doing the different type of work, then I want to lift them. If it is get in there and put my shoulder beside theirs, I'm going to do that too, if it makes sense and if it meets those things that I feel like are my core values.
And I saw your expression when I talked about, when you add up these individuals who are these points of light, when you add them up into community, that's what makes a community. That's what makes I think coastal Mississippi may have a unique advantage on a lot of communities because of having faced the worst natural disaster in American history, and things like the Bonnie Carey spillway and the algae bloom and the oil, spill, and now the pandemic and hurricanes. You know the story. But we are uniquely positioned, though, to really understand that when the going gets tough, we should reach out to our neighbors. You've seen that throughout your life, haven't you?
I have. And it's interesting you would say that, because that's probably why my heart still lives in Mississippi. I came here just after Katrina, and people would say to me, wait a minute, you're moving here? Everybody's leaving here. And it became pretty obvious quickly that the people who were staying were involved in that feeling that you just described, of wanting to be a community, of working together and seeing where we can move forward from here. We had a blank slate, we said a lot of times, and yet it took lots of hard hours of work from people who cared deeply about this community. And in that process of walking in new, but then working together, I love it. In Mississippi, I love the coast, and I can't see myself spending time anywhere else other than when I go see family.
So when you go see families in South Carolina, which is where you're from originally, you have a grandchild there. You have another grandchild on the way.
I do.
What's it been like to kind of try to split the time between the two communities, especially during the pandemic?
There's a rhythm that has evolved over time. I've been doing this since 17 or late 17. And what I know is that people do what they want to do. When they want to stay connected, they call each other on the phone, or in pandemic, we Zoom. Work has been a breeze if I'm away from the coast, but during the pandemic, because of Zoom, very much like what we do every day in the business world. So I really feel like it is an easy transition. And it may sound strange to other people, but sometimes you have to say, oh, well, it works for me.
Actually, I don't think it might have sound strange at some point, but Kyle and I have talked about this many times. Kyle, the producer of this show, and many of our guests have talked about this, and that is that trends that were in place before the disaster. We saw this after Katrina. Certainly, we've seen this during the pandemic. Trends that were in place were sped up after the disaster. So in the case of the pandemic, this whole notion of social distancing and protecting the vulnerable and et cetera, made us all jump to use of technology in ways, we might have been doing some of it before, but man, it's really enabled, the economy to continue. It's enabled education to continue. It's enabled people like you who are involved in community efforts to continue to do your work as if you're in the room right next door. I'll give you a quick example. James O'Byrne, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning writer and editor who I worked with over in New Orleans, now lives in the countryside of France. And when he's on the show, because he's just a smart guy, and we talk about media and social media and stuff like that. And when he's on the show, our connection from France to, my studio here at my house in Biloxi is sometimes better than, someone who's on Zoom or Skype, just a few miles away. But it is really incredible, the use of technology. And in some ways, your work will never go back to where it was before in terms of how you use technology, will it?
I don't think so. I think that we are going to keep those factors that are strong ones and that help do just what you were describing. And the things that have been an issue for us, we'll let those fall away. But it is definitely that phrase of the information age where we can really tap around the world with just a keyboard. And how great that is for those efforts of trying to work together when we can do that. It's not the same. I like the hugs and the how are yous, but with it, it's still able to keep moving forward.
Yeah, Ann and I were watching something the other night, watching a movie. We've watched a lot of movies, as I'm sure a lot of people have. There's so much content. Goodness gracious, so much streaming content. But one of the scenes was a bunch of people inside a bar dancing shoulder to shoulder. And I know that there's probably still some bars that are doing that. They shouldn't be, but they may be. But in masses, people aren't doing that. And I think that the reality is that even in that kind of a situation, it's going to change. It's going to change how willing we are to hug, because, I'm a kind of a hugger too, and I love to shake hands and love to really converse closely with people, et cetera. But the whole pandemic has really kind of changed that. And by the way, one of the things that Dr. Conger talked about last Friday was this. He said that that the occurrence of just the normal flu has gone down to numbers that they never expected they would ever see. So we're learning some new behaviors that have helped us during the pandemic, but that if we continue to deploy them, are going to help us in other ways that we don't fully yet appreciate. So what I want to do, Cindy, when we come back, I want to talk about the tragic accident that happened at the boardwalk in Gulfport. And, Lee's death, unfortunately, does create an opportunity for us to have a conversation about this and why safety and the efforts around that, and especially as it relates to the Active Living Initiative, is something we should be talking about. So when we come back, we're going to have that conversation with Cindy Walker. We'll see you after this break.
Coast View on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, CasinoRadio1063.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey South Mississippi, it's J. Allen at J. Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the J. Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the J. Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport or on allentoyota.com.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I am so thrilled to have my friend Cindy Walker with me today. And, Cindy, I really enjoyed the conversation that you and I had about the community. And if I had to sort of define Coast Vue in as crystallized a way as I can, it is that I hope that having the conversations like you and I had in the first segment is an education for those who haven't thought about it much. And for those who have thought about it, it may sort of urge them to go and find the role that they can play. Because as I've often said, you can never have too many volunteers, can you?
No, not at all.
We're always looking for more of the lights to come to be part of the 1,000 points of light. Well, as I mentioned, the way I came to you, not that I didn't know you well already, but the way I came to you as it relates to this specific conversation. Lee Brumfield's death was just a tragic loss for coastal Mississippi. And then obviously in the memorials, you read and see how many friends he had and how big a difference he was making here in coastal Mississippi. Did you happen to know Lee?
I only knew him slightly. I had not spent a lot of time around him, but did know him and know that he was loved by many.
Yeah, he really was. He really was. But in this case, my goodness, what a tragic accident. And, here's the thing. You know this. When I ride my bike, I leave the Northern Shore Back Bay, go down to the Coliseum, and then I hang a left, and I drive down the boardwalk, and I go down to Biloxi's boardwalk behind the restaurants, and I just take it in. And I love that bike ride. I'm not taking that bike ride, during this cold weather, but I love that bike ride. But I have to tell you, I often think about this. I'm always aware of if a car is coming. Okay, I don't ever lull myself into thinking that I'm completely safe. Not, frankly, to be honest with you, in the case of Lee's death, I don't think he even knew what hit him. It happened just so rapidly. It just car veered, bam, it was over. Right. But boy, how freak of an accident that was. But that could happen anytime. And this is something you think about a lot. So just going into the conversation, what's your thoughts about it in general?
Well, let me just add to it that I try to walk between 4 and 6 miles a day myself, and it's 99% of the time is out on Highway 90. So I'm very familiar with what you're talking about. One of the most important facts that I've hung on to is the statistics of what happens if you get hit by a car. So if you're like 25 miles an hour as a car coming at you, you can survive that. There's probably only about a 20% chance that you're not going to if they hit you. But at 55 miles an hour, there is no chance that you are going to survive that if a car hits you. And when I'm crossing, very much like probably you are, those intersections where there are 4 lanes you have to navigate, I bet you think about, whoa, where are they? And how do I make sure they don't find me? The idea, since I know that fact, makes me, even as a driver, watch more carefully around those pedestrians, because now that I know that information, they may not, but I need to take the responsibility to be careful around it. It is, it's a great view. It's one of our greatest resources on the coast is that sand beach across Highway 90 on the south side. But getting to it has a lot of trepidation, and many times in this area around the mall and between Lorain Cowan, where we have over 14 million tourists a year coming down here, they all have to traverse that space between the north side of Highway 90 and the south side. And you add kids and a dog and equipment for the beach, and we've got a real treacherous potential situation there. Well, we're just fortunate that no more people have not been lost in that situation.
I can't agree more. And I think one of the things, in the case of Lee Brumfield, it was a very, very just freak accident. Right. Okay, so, but you point out that even crossing is a big issue. What I notice when I go to cross is that I wish that more people would do the speed limit. What I have found is that a lot of people don't do the speed limit, and some of them go really fast. And what you perceive to be far away, and you start to cross, and then suddenly you realize, holy mackerel, that person, they closed the distance between where they were when I first looked and where they are now in such a quick amount of time. It scared the hell out of me more than once, I might add. So what is your organization? What is the Active Living Initiative?
Well, we're looking at, number one, safe pathways, we call them, for bike and pedestrian folks to move around the county of Harrison County. Jackson County has already completed a similar process 2 years ago. They have a plan. we have received money from the Board of Supervisors in Harrison County to actually do a study of where does that need to be? Where are those arteries that people who don't have access to a vehicle because of their economic level need to walk and get to safely, things that are important for their life to be sustained, as well as how do we get everyone to engage with that coastline that we have that's so beautiful and yet is so important for bringing community together, something we talked about in the first segment, families sometimes together, and just simply giving us a better quality of life. And so you and I have crossed 90 a number of times. We've had that where we kind of get ourselves in that pace of, okay, that's 45 to 50. I see where that car is. It should be here in this amount of time. We're doing a mathematic equation almost to get across. And then that outlier shows up, like you described, who's doing 60, and they are on you very quickly. So it's a juggle, and it is sometimes very scary.
Well, you guys have looked into this. I'd be interested to know how does coastal Mississippi and Harrison County particularly, because that's what you're focused on, but I'm sure you know the statistics across the coast, but how do we stack up related to bike and pedestrian safety as it relates to the U.S. statistics?
Our numbers are fairly low, but pedestrians and bikes are probably not more than 12% of our fatalities. But if it's my friend or my relative, it doesn't matter what those statistics are. It matters that it happened. And when we look at some of the things that could be done to correct it, we've looked at it. If you've been on 90, and many people have, the segments of the sidewalk many times vary in width. We have some that are 2 feet. We have some that are 90-degree angles almost from the road. We have 12 feet. And so we've looked at, as our committee, what would happen if you took that sidewalk and extended it to just give another 6 or 8 feet for them to move out of the way of that vehicle should it come. You know, it only cost us as a state about $34 million for 26 miles to be completed. That doesn't sound like a lot. And if you break it down by county, it gets even more manageable. There doesn't seem to be an appetite for that. Interestingly enough to me, the 100th anniversary of the seawall is coming up in 2027. Wouldn't it be great to have this very visible, safe sidewalk, boardwalk that folks could access the beach through and celebrate in 2027 with a really safe way to get there? There's just so much that could be done, and yet when we look at the fact that there's only a total of 13% of our fatalities that are pedestrian and bike riders, I guess we go to the lower end of the spectrum on the needs scale. So,
well, Cindy, one of the things that I've often talked about on the show, in fact, talked in detail about it last week, because I had Chuck Loftus on, who's, as you know, director of the Sand Beach Group, and his team. They do such a great job with the beach. But it's our number one asset. And even after Katrina, once the debris was cleaned off, even though if you're facing south and the destruction's behind you, it was that what I often refer to in meetings, because I was, as you probably remember, chairman of the tourism effort for the Governor's Commission, I often said this, that even though destruction was behind you, the view south was a reminder of why we had to bring this place back. I mean, it's our most important asset. The other thing you mentioned is that, you know, there's actually two sidewalks here. We've got the sidewalk that is part of the seawall that you mentioned, and the opportunities to really enhance that. But then there's a sidewalk north, and in most cases. In some cases, obviously, there's not. But what I have found actually is that is mostly not doable for the most part, especially on a bike, because it's not maintained. I mean, you've got growth through it. You've got areas where sand has covered it, and other areas where the drop-offs, to cross from one intersection to the other are dangerous. Yes. We haven't really, and by the way, that's where a lot of tourists and locals could actually walk. Okay. But we're forced to sort of go across because it's not the best case scenario. That's something you've noted as well, right?
Right. We've done a lot of photography on some of these areas, sending some videos to folks. It is, there's little things. For example, I didn't know until I encountered a lady in a wheelchair who did a walk, quote, quote, in her wheelchair 6 miles every day. And she said she had to go down to courthouse and park her van because she couldn't get across 90 because there's no ADA ramps at most of the intersections. And it's like, okay, well, she lives on the B's, but she can't go down to B's because A, there's no sidewalk, and then there's no ramp. So there are things that we've ignored or just couldn't do for whatever our excuse would be.
This is Cindy Walker. She's the chair of the Active Living Initiative. And my sense is we'll continue to have conversations as we go forward. As you have important stuff, let me know about it, and we'll continue the conversation. I love the work that you're doing, and thank you for joining me today, Cindy.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too. We'll see you after this break.
Broadcasting safe and sound from the coastal Mississippi studios, this is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk 103.1.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, casinoradio1063.com.
Never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and,
wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Hear the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
Everyone knows the only thing better than pizza is free pizza, and right now, buy a $10 gift certificate to CiCi's Pizza for only $5. It's like buying a pizza and getting a pizza for free. Go to our station's website or Facebook. Look for the Half Off Deals logo to purchase this amazing deal right now.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We're going to move now to Jeremy England, who's the Mississippi Senator for District 51. We'll get him to remind us where that is and what that encompasses. But at the end, Jeremy, you got an opportunity to meet Matt Stratton, who is the director of the Emergency Management Group over at Harrison County. Man, we're so lucky to have in all of our counties, in all of our cities, all these emergency leaders who not only respond to disasters, but they also prepare us for disasters. And you see it in your work every day, don't you?
Oh, I do. And look, this, you hear people say that everything we do is teamwork, and that's absolutely the case. Guys like Matt and Earl over here in Jackson County and Greg Michelle, who just stepped away. But, man, they had a heck of a year and did an admirable job at it. And really, we couldn't do without great folks like that.
Yeah, coastal Mississippi alone, I'm coming over here to some of the statistics. 5 local states of emergencies. We were in the cone for hurricanes 7 times, and then you had the pandemic on top of that. And of course, in the upper part of Mississippi or middle part of Mississippi, we had some of the worst tornadoes in our state's history. And then the pandemic, and now cold weather, and the realities of that. Wow, I mean, we're lucky to have such dedicated people in those positions. Hey, listen, I went back and looked. The last time we talked was in July, and I want our listeners to know, if they didn't catch that conversation, that in that conversation, I told people that you were one of the bright young stars, one of the bright young leaders in the legislature. I really believe that, and I believed it then. I even believe it more now because I've watched you since then. And what I like about you is why you are conservative. I'm conservative too. But I don't always fall in line with the Republican Party on certain things. I believe I feel like I'm sort of an independent. I'm maybe a moderate conservative, somewhere in the middle. But what I like about you, Jeremy, is that you speak your mind, and you don't just follow because that's what you're supposed to do. You do your own homework. You're a good thinker. You're a really good writer. And you're someone who has a really innate ability to be able to describe your position. Now, you may not always convince people to be on your team, but you do a good job at that, and I just want to commend you for it. So let me say this. One of the things I saw when I went back and looked at this conversation was this. It was a quote from Mark Twain that I shared with you, and it's powerful. It's even more powerful today than it was back in July. And here's what the quote said. It's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. That's powerful, isn't it?
It's very powerful. And look, it's very true. I mean, we seem to be living in a time in politics right now where people have decided that it's easier to get people angry or to play to their emotions. And the best way to do that is through misinformation. The facts, it's tough to get somebody very emotional just on facts, right? And so they'll do that. And I've seen it happen with almost every bill that we have come through here. Everything we take up is dangerous, or it's, something's going to happen that's going to cost people lives or cost their health. And that gets people angry and it gets people on their guard. And then to convince them otherwise, to try to walk them back from that and tell them, look, this is what we're actually doing. It gets tougher because once those emotions are involved and once people are in their corners, kind of like in a boxing ring, you're never going to get them back into the middle to talk about good policy. And that's something that we just have to deal with.
See, I covet, and I talk about this all the time, but I covet the days when political division isn't the thing that defines us, that personalities isn't the thing that defines us, that what defines us is our ability to debate the policies, to debate bills and direction, but not lose respect for one another. I covet those days. We've never been totally there anyway, but the reality is that social media and conspiracy theories that surround that, and I've done entire shows about that, create for people a sense of strong belief in things that aren't true. And in fact, what I've often said, because I came from the news business, that's where I came from, that trustworthy news that people can trust. They don't necessarily have to agree with it. I'm just saying objective, trustworthy news is one of the keys to a democracy, to maintaining a viable democracy. You really believe that, don't you?
I do. Look, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, right? I mean, you get that and you leave the opinions out of it to the extent you can. And that's what you have. And that's what you base, those are facts. That's what you then base your opinions on, and you try to affect policy that way. And it just makes more sense that way. And I was reading a quote in a book about Calvin Coolidge that I'm reading right now, and he talked about education, and he talked about how instead of teaching people what to think, we need to teach people how to think. Mm-hmm. And if we can get back to that, and if you can have people that can weigh their options and weigh every different opinion they're hearing, and then somehow cut through that and get to the middle, we'd all be better off for it.
Well, Mark Henderson said on my show, 9 months ago, and I never forgot it because I thought it was powerful. He's the entrepreneur who started Lazy Magnolia Brewery, first brewery in the state of Mississippi. And he's just a really smart guy. Does a lot of sophisticated radar technology, has a bunch of patents. But so he's a really good thinker. And what he says is that social media provides or enables people to wait each morning for their thought of the day to be delivered to them. As opposed to what you just said, getting sort of objective news delivered to them and letting them read that and then decide for themselves what their position is going to be. But you can't argue with facts. Facts are facts. But today, what's happening is these conspiracy theory videos and all this other stuff gets thrown out there and people get misdirected. And so it's hard to convince them that they've been fooled. It's a lot easier to just fool them. And that's a real shame. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, I noticed that you had a bill that focused something around beauty salons, and I want you to talk specifically about that. But I don't want to get bogged down in the technicalities of the bill itself, but more importantly, how these efforts can sometimes be directed against you, and in some cases, actually against your family. And I pointed out to you when we were off the air that I really appreciate the way that you responded to that, certainly you were emotional about it, but you weren't confrontational about it. You were just trying to explain to people that your family should be out of bounds and to talk about what happened.
Yeah, Ricky. So we dropped a bill that essentially there were a few areas that are covered by the Cosmetology Board here in Mississippi. And that board has a very wide ranging group of trades that fall underneath that board. And a few of those are eyebrow threading, eyelash extension, and makeup applications. Those issues are not taught in the school, where they're not required to be taught as part of the curriculum, and they're not part of the test that you have to get to be a licensed cosmetologist or esthetician. So what my bill was to do was to remove those from the purview of the Board of Cosmetologists. Now, my bill also had a provision that would take out stylists, people who do blowouts and different things like that, and just style the hair. Well, I know today's Mardi Gras when we're taping this, so I'll mention that people that go to carnival balls, they like to get their hair just fixed up, that kind of thing, where there's no scissors, no razors, or look, I'm sorry, I said scissors, shears. I've been told to call it by people that I've made angry over this, but look, that bill, there's actually there are a few lawsuits going on right now that the Board of Cosmetology is actually, in my opinion, on the losing end of that. There's not a good defense for them to require people to go spend the money and the hours to get these licenses whenever it doesn't even deal with their trade. And actually, the Board of Cosmetology, for the three issues that I mentioned, was in favor of that. But what we had happen here in Mississippi, Ricky, was a national group that their job is to protect the industry, right? And they send out an email and they get people angry, and they tell them that I'm attacking the trade and I'm attacking the industry and their licenses. And when people get angry, like we talked about before, their only interest at that point is to attack me or in any way they can. And so it kind of got off the rails on that. And I would have to remind people, look, my mom's parents, my grandfather and grandmother had a barber and beauty shop in Goche, and that's where I would credit for getting my start in politics, was sitting there listening to the problems of the world. And also when these folks were closed down during the pandemic, I did a fundraiser for them. I did a virtual haircut. And so people, cosmetologists and barbers, stylists, they're all a big part of, I consider part of my family because I grew up around that. So I don't want to do anything that would hurt them. And really the misinformation that got out there kind of took away from the fact that I'm just trying to help some Mississippians get to work.
Yeah. Hey, I was interesting to hear your background. My grandparents both owned a beauty salon on Cervantes and Pensacola called the El Dustin. My grandfather's name is Dusty. And anyway, yeah, that kind of pulled back some old memories of going in there when I was a kid and just kind of hanging out with all the women with their heads underneath the blow dryers or whatever you call those. And what a great light that was, to be honest with you. I have such pleasant memories about hanging out there. Hey, why don't we do this? When we come back, I want to talk about how that got directed at your family. And we'll talk about that just a little bit. And then we're going to shift gears. I want to talk about revenge porn, something that you would think that Mississippi would be on top of, but we're one of 4 states who didn't have that legislation, and you kind of led the discussion on that. So we're going to come back to that. There's some other things I want to talk about as well. So we'll see you after this break with Jeremy England.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam, as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. Norbert, Elvis.
And I want to tell you about Presley. He had 2 different voices. He would sit and talk to me in a very calm, low voice. And we were at Stack's one night, and we were having lunch. We always had lunch at midnight because he was nocturnal. We sat there and we have our sandwiches, and at 1 o'clock, he looked up. He said, "Hey, Pot, come on, it's time for me to go be office." And he stood up, and a much deeper voice, he put on his macho voice. "Hey, fellas, it's 1 o'clock. Let's get cracking, okay?"
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, Amazon Alexa, and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
106.3 Casino Radio is here. Tune to 106.3 to discover all of our must-see attractions and everything that's happening at our 12 incredible casino resorts. Where to eat, where to stay, what to do, and where to play. 106.3 Casino Radio has you covered with everything you need to know to help make your visit here to the coast one you'll never forget. Turn on 106.3 Casino Radio or listen now on our website, CasinoRadio1063.com.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. When you listen to SuperTalk Mississippi, you become part of a statewide community, a community of knowledgeable, engaged, enlightened, well-informed, hard-working men and women just like you, all eager to see the Magnolia State grow and prosper. There may be some disagreement on how to get there, but the goal remains the same, for each Mississippian to reach their American dream. Thanks for listening and being a part of the conversation on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I have Senator Jeremy England with us this morning. He's one of the rising stars in the Senate and someone I have a lot of respect for. You know, when I was the publisher of 3 coast newspapers, the Times-Picayune, the Sun-Herald, the Press Register, and then I had other responsibilities for other newspapers across the Southeast. I know what it's like to be a target. You know, if we write an editorial someone doesn't like or a story that someone doesn't like, and a couple of times during that time, it was directed at my family and aimed at us in a way that would try to divide us and making terrible accusations about me and so on. The good news was that I have a wonderful marriage and a great family, and I always said that the key to my success, the only legacy I want to leave is being a great husband and leaving a generation of wonderful kids. That's my goal, and wonderful grandkids. So they thought I defined my life by the work that I did, but that was secondary to the overall goal that I had. But being in political life like you are, you get to see kind of the meanness in society, don't you?
Oh yeah, and look, it's not everyone. It's only a small percentage of people, but it only takes one or two to really kind of you mentioned my wife or my kids or anything like that, and it's an effort to knock me off of my ultimate goal is the way I look at it. And Ricky, I'll tell you, when I ran, I didn't run on anything specific. I ran on a set of principles, and those are my foundation. And one of those were to undo overburdensome regulations and restrictions to allow Mississippians to get to work. And when you have a good, solid foundation, and I think in a good, solid family, I can't mention enough how great my family is to allow me to do this. But it's tough to knock somebody off a good, solid foundation. That's the way I look at it. And I just keep my eye on the goal and keep moving forward. And luckily, my wife and kids are, they've got thick skin like me, and they're tough. And I hope that they're learning a lot throughout this process.
And so do mine. I love the way you said that. It's tough to knock someone who's got a strong foundation off their foundation. I think that's a great way to say it. And I felt the same way. Oftentimes, actually, when people would make those kind of accusations, again, it was only kind of like small, but it felt loud just because, you have to receive the message somehow, right? But I always would say, I would thank God, actually, that it's a reminder to me of how solid my foundation really was. I mean, it's interesting that something that could be so divisive and negative could actually remind you how special your relationships are, So enough about that. Hey, we got just a few more minutes. I want to real quick, revenge porn. That's a terrible thing that happens to people. It really is. And I was really surprised Mississippi hadn't made some kind of movement in that area already. You made the arguments on the Senate floor, and you handled the Judicial B Committee effort on that. So tell me about it. Yeah,
Ricky. So revenge porn is obviously where there are shared photos or videos that are shared within the spirit of a relationship, and then for whatever reason, or this is just one way, for whatever reason the relationship ends, and that gets used to either get back at someone or to coerce them to do something else. And in Mississippi, we're one of only 4 states that don't have legislation directed at that. And the prosecutors and Attorney General Lynn Fitch's office, they've reached out to ask us to help them do that. And this bill allowed them to do that. And I found out so many things where, human trafficking is on our news constantly. And it's a very terrible thing that we have that goes on, but it's a reality. And it happens here in Mississippi. But for each of the individuals that are caught up in that world, when they're rescued and pulled out of that world, every time a photo or a video of that person is shared, they become a victim all over again. So we really needed some way to go out and take that up. And I'm proud of our prosecutors for asking for this. I'm proud of them for wanting to go after these folks that are doing that. It's really something we need here in Mississippi.
Well, the advice that we always gave in the digital media world that I came from, because we understand what this, how this works, is don't take videos and pictures of the people you love or yourself, because it goes up into the cloud and you can't pull it back down again. And you can't be guaranteed that someone else is not going to be able to see those. I mean, the truth is our smartphones have so much information and data about ourselves that it's already been caught and collected somewhere, and it's just not safe. And so, first of all, don't do it. But if you do it and then you're going to use it somehow against people, I'm so glad to see the Mississippi is acting in a way that's going to make that super detrimental to the person that's trying to inflict harm. One other thing, the tourism bill, huge opportunity to sort of consolidate tourism budgets in the state. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we passed through the Senate a bill that will create a tourism agency here in Mississippi that will help. That's a $7 billion industry. It's important all over Mississippi, particularly on the coast, but also in Oxford and Tupelo and even the Delta. With every time a great book gets written about the Mississippi Delta, it makes folks want to go visit there. And this will help direct funds and efforts to get us get our tourism where it needs to be. I think that's a great opportunity for Mississippi.
Well, there's a lot more going on, but I covered the bases I wanted to cover. We could break it all down, but we don't have time to do all that. But the important stuff we did, and what I want to continue to do every time we get together is give people a look into how you think, give people a sense of, you have conservative values, but you're also independent. And I really honor that in today's political world. It's not always easy to be that kind of person. So until we meet again, Senator Jeremy England, I appreciate you joining me, buddy.
Ricky, thank you so much. I enjoyed it as always. Yeah,
you bet. Take care.
Broadcasting safe and sound from the coastal Mississippi studios, this is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk 103.1.